so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs, along with TJ Birkel of the Common Fan Podcast, here to get an opponent's view of the Nebraska Cornhuskers as the number 16 Indiana Hoosiers take on Nebraska in Bloomington this Saturday. Big game, Fox's big noon kickoff. The pregame show will be there, Barstool will be there, and everybody's excited for it. So, TJ, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sammy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. So, Nebraska comes in at 5-1, unranked in the AP poll, but at 24th in the coaches poll. How is the Matt Rule era going?
I think most fans feeling pretty good about Rule, the direction of the program. You know, coming into this season, we experienced 7 consecutive losing seasons, which is really something that's been unheard of for Nebraska football for really decades. And so it's been a rough stretch, something that I've never experienced in my lifetime up to this point. And so I think there was a belief when Coach Rule came in that he had a bit of a rebuilding project on his hands. It wasn't going to be a quick fix. And so, you know, they went 5-7 last year. At one point they were 5-3 and just needed one more win to get to a bowl game. And unfortunately ended the year on a 4-game skid. But I think they've shown a lot of improvement this year. They're sitting at 5-1. And I think generally speaking, Husker fans are pretty happy with Coach Rule and the direction of the program.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to see that Nebraska has the longest bowlless streak in the country right now. Haven't been bowling since 2016. Indiana's already bowl eligible, but let's get into this game. What is the identity of this year's Nebraska team? Obviously, you have Dylan Raiola, and a lot of press about him. But what else does Nebraska bring to the table?
Yeah, it's funny you say that about the bowl-less streak. When I was a kid, we had the longest streak of consecutive bowl games. So that's how the tables have turned. This year, it's the identity of Matt Rule's team since day one in Lincoln has got to start with defense. So he, the offense was pretty atrocious last year, but he flipped that defense pretty quickly. I think that we ended the 2023 season at number 13 nationally in total defense, and by and large have picked up where we left off from last year. So it's a really senior heavy defense. Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker kind of anchor that defensive line. We've got a veteran presence sort of every level of defense. They've been really good at stopping the run. They're only giving up, I think it's about 11 points a game. And so the D has really carried us, and there's kind of a belief that this defense can probably keep us in any game any game against any team that we play. Eventually you're going to need, more from the offense, but the identity of this team really starts with the defense. On offense, the story of the offseason since he decommitted from Georgia and committed to the Huskers is Dylan Raiola, 5-star true freshman quarterback. His dad was an All-American at Nebraska. And he's been great. I mean, he's been fantastic as a true freshman this year. They also kind of, revamped the offense from what they were doing last year, brought in a lot of new playmakers, both from the transfer portal and from the high school ranks. So we've seen improvement. I would say, the offense is probably average nationally, maybe even a little bit below average. And so it's still a work in progress. It's been really inconsistent. So, there have been times like the first half of the Colorado game or the second half of the Purdue game where it looked like this offense couldn't miss. It's been spectacular. There have been other times where they've really stalled out for like entire halves. And so I think, some of that, has to do with a true freshman quarterback. Some of that I think has to do with kind of finding their identity with some different playmakers this year and kind of a lot of different things. But We said last year so many times, Sammy, geez, this defense is so good. If the offense could even be average, we'd be winning more games. And I think so far, at least that's what we've seen this year. But I think we're going to have to see the offense start to play more complete games because the second half of our schedule, the back half of our schedule gets a lot more difficult.
So, like, what causes that inconsistency? I watched the Colorado game over. Offense looked really good in the first half, put up 0 points in the second half. Obviously, Purdue is not good. And I'm not just saying that as an IU fan.
Yeah.
They stink, especially on defense. And that game, I believe, was 0-0 at halftime.
Yeah, that's right.
So what causes those inconsistencies on offense? Is it just youth? Is there a breakdown in something?
We've seen that occasionally. Again, Raiola's been really good. We've seen the occasional true freshman mistake from him. I would say by and large, it's the inability to run the ball consistently. This coaching staff talks about wanting to be a physical team, wanting to be able to pound the rock so that when they get to the fourth quarter, they're able to start winning over teams. I'm not sure we've seen it yet, to be quite honest, at least consistently. And I think the game sort of situations also dictate that a bit. So against Colorado, we went into halftime leading 28-0. And I think we came out with it like deciding we're just going to run the ball and take as much time off the clock as possible. And they stacked the box. And that was just part of that game, the way that game played out. Against Purdue, we moved the ball the entire first half and we had penalties. We had, field goals, missed field goals, blocked field goals. So it was kind of one of those, like sometimes it's just mistakes or, we had one touchdown. I mean, literally we scored a touchdown and we got penalized for our guy was like a legal block, downfield block. Our guy literally, you could on the replay, you can see him work to get out of the way of the defender. So it was just a bad call. It took a touchdown off the board. So there's some of that. And I think that's part of the growth. Coach Rule talks all the time about learning how to win or relearning how to win. And some of the growing pains that come with that, we haven't conquered, we're better on penalties, but sometimes they rear their ugly heads at the worst possible time. And just some of the old issues that have haunted this team in recent years.
Speaking of haunting this team, I want to talk about special teams. That's the exact response I was expecting. After talking to some Husker fans, it's bad. The games I've watched, you had 2 block punts against Rutgers, another block punt earlier in the season. So that's at least 3. You guys are 4 for 9 on field goals with some injuries to your kickers. What's going on? I mean, that's the question, right? What is going on special teams where a team like Nebraska, who should be good on special teams, is awful?
Yeah, it's been bad. It's been bad. You're not wrong. I don't have the answer for you. I wish I had the answer of what's going on. It's frustrating because Rule is definitely a guy who does not stand pat. The offense needed to get better in the offseason, and he went and got a bunch of new playmakers and brought in a quarterbacks coach and co-offensive coordinator, right? Like, so we address the areas that need to be addressed. Turnovers have been a problem for years. They really focused on that in the offseason. I think we're +6 in turnover margin now, which is the first time that's how, that turnover has been a problem since Tom Osborne retired, not joking. And so like, he definitely in every area that needs to improve, like he doesn't just talk about it, he does something to try to fix it and change it. And so that's why this special teams thing has been so confounding, because it wasn't great last year. And I would argue it's even worse this year. And so our starting kicker's been injured, but he was a true freshman last year, kind of thrust into duty. I'm not sure that was an obvious sort of consistent performer there. I mean, he's a Nebraska kid. We're all big fans of him, but that wasn't a guarantee coming into the season, right? Let me put it that way. And then he's been injured. And so the backup has struggled a bit. He's had a couple misses, but he's also had, I'm trying to remember, I'm thinking of at least 2, maybe 3 field goals blocked that weren't his fault. They're just bad snaps. And so I'm a big believer that special teams is literally 50 to 75% of the battle on special teams is just focusing on it and coaching it, right? A high school team can be good at special teams if they spend the time on it, right? And so that's why this is so maddening and so frustrating. The coverage, even, I don't think we've given up any punt or kick returns for touchdowns, but the coverage has been really leaky at times. It just hasn't been good across the board. And, Husker fans are prone to overreaction, but there's definitely been some calls for firing the special teams coach, Ed Foley. I don't think that's going to happen, at least in the short term. So I think everybody's sort of hoping this is not something I think that's going to be a different maker in a good way for Nebraska for the rest of the year. I think everyone's hoping they can find a patch during the bye week because we have a bye week this week, or we had a bye week on Saturday as well. So you hope that with 2 weeks, maybe they could put a Band-Aid on it and figure something out to at least make these units serviceable. I think the biggest question mark for me, I feel like some of that stuff you can fix quicker than others. The biggest concern for me is the field goal kicking unit. And we're going to be, and if this team wants to get over the hump, get back to a bowl game, more, win more than that even, we're going to have to win some close games this year. And that's been a challenge for Husker teams in recent years. And you're going to have to take 3 points sometimes when the 3 points are there to be taken, right? And so that's frustrating because the Nebraska athletic department has been doing, and they did it in the offseason and carried it into the season. They've been doing this video series, this YouTube video series, kind of behind the scenes thing. It's pretty cool, actually. You see Rule addressing the team. You see some of his halftime speeches or pregame speeches and practices and different things like that. It's pretty cool, but it's called Chasing Three because they lost 4 games by 3 points last year. And so knowing that, getting over the hump in close games is a focus, it makes it all the more maddening that the special teams have been as bad as they are.
You guys are 1-1 in close games. You beat Rutgers 14-7, lost to Illinois. And as an IU fan, IU lost a ton of close games the last 3 years. And those, that anxiety still pops up in the IU fan base. Is that still there despite beating Rutgers 14-7 with Nebraska? There's still oh no, we're in a 1-score game. We're going to not get over the hump here?
Absolutely. I mean, I think at least among the fan base, the hope is that the players are sort of mentally turning a corner. But I think everyone, in that Illinois game, we had the ball with 3 minutes left in a tie game. Raiola, one of his few mistakes that game, missed an open man in the end zone. Next play, we miss a field goal. And so I think every Husker fan at that moment kind of had that sense of doom. And sure enough, we held them. We kept them out, kept them from scoring in regulation, and then kind of fell apart in overtime. And then against Rutgers, it was a step in the right direction, right? So they scored. We get the ball back with about 4 minutes left. Of course, we don't get enough first downs to kill the clock, to run out the clock and win the game. So we punt it back to them with 2 minutes to go, and the defense held. And I don't think they even got across the 50-yard line, if I recall correctly. So that's a sign of improvement. I think everyone felt that sense of dread again against Rutgers. But it's kind of like we still haven't seen, an effective 2-minute drill or 4-minute drill when we're down 3 and we need to go tie the game or go win the game, or when we're tied and we need to go tie the game and win the game. And I think Husker fans and the team needs to show that eventually, and so yes, I think that sense of doom and gloom is still there. I think Coach Rule is really trying every trick in the book to sort of beat that mentality out of the guys. And, just think about, he's really good at, process oriented, do your job, do the thing in front of you, right? Go 1-0 today, right? Let's go 1-0 today. Let's go 1-0 this week kind of thing. And so he's really, really trying to focus on that. But I think they've got to prove it a few more times, right?
Looking at the defense, the rush defense, Nebraska ranks 3rd in the Big Ten, giving up just 84.2 yards per game. What makes that unit up front so tough?
It starts with the defensive line. So I think I mentioned Nash Hutmaker, they call him the polar bear, and Ty Robinson are both 5th and 6th year seniors. They've been around the program a long time. They're both probably going to play in the NFL. I mean, they're just big time dudes in the middle of the defensive line. Jamari Butler is another guy that's been here for a long time, who's really stout on the defensive line. And then the linebacker play has been really good too. John Bullock is another guy. He's an Omaha guy who started as a safety and kind of wasn't getting anywhere, and Rule staff showed up and said, I think this guy could play linebacker. And he's probably been our best linebacker this year. And so and then the other thing is, I just think, Tony White, our defensive coordinator, has proven himself to be a really good, we're not considering him an X and O's got an expert in this stuff. He's proven himself to be, a really good game manager. And that first quarter against Rutgers, their big running back, Kyle Monangai, hopefully I said that right, had, I think, was it 68 rushing yards in the first quarter? And he was kind of gashing us, and it was kind of like, oh boy, here we go. He had 10 more rushing yards the rest of the game. So Coach White, I think, has proven himself to be a good in-game manager, good in-game adjustment. So I think, he has that 3-3-5 scheme, which is really flexible, and they're kind of able to do different things with that. So I think that has a piece of it as well. But I think by and large, and the other thing I would say is they've got what I love about this rule staff is they're not afraid to play young guys. So they've been able to mix in some freshmen and sophomores. It might only be 10 snaps a game, but these guys are, impact players, and, they're making a difference as well.
What is your biggest concern going into the Indiana game?
I think I'm a little concerned about this facing Indiana's offense, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that's strength on strength, right? I mean, Indiana's offense is obviously really good. Nebraska's defense is the strength of the team. Honestly, I'd feel better if it was one of the nation's best, if you were more of a run centric approach or more of a traditional Big Ten run first type of team, because Nebraska actually tends to thrive on stopping those types of teams that sort of spread out, more balanced passing attacks. I'm worried that sooner or later you're going to get beat on. So right, like our defense might still play really well, but you got enough playmakers, and Rourke is going to find weaknesses and exploit them, right? And so I think that makes me nervous. And then I'm also just Nebraska, I think, has not proven that yet this year that they can play a 4-quarter game and play well consistently. And I think they'll need to do that against Indiana. And so I would love to, I don't want, like, the defense could play really well, but we've seen these stretches where the offense stalls out 3 drives in a row. Like, I don't know if you survive that against Indiana, right? So we're going to have to play more consistent. And that doesn't mean, scoring 50 points, but it's going to mean, like, can we get 3 or 4 first downs? Can we take the air out of that home crowd, which is going to be electric? Can we keep the ball and keep the ball away from the offense a little bit? Can we do the little things right? Can we not make special teams mistakes? Can we put it all together? I mean, I think that actually is probably my biggest overriding concern, is can the Huskers put together 4 solid quarters, which they have not shown that they can do.
What gives you the confidence to go into Bloomington and come out with the win?
Well, again, it starts with the defense. I think the defense can keep us in any game that we play this year. And so I'd love to think, that we can start out, get some, I'm a bit like, the way I think about this game, I think Nebraska needs to start well. And that doesn't mean start fast. That doesn't mean jump out to a 14-0 lead. Of course, I'd love that, but, like, we can't get in a hole early. I feel like that's going to be, like, the crowd is going to be insane. Big noon kickoff, all the things that Indiana has going for it this year.
Yep.
That sellout crowd. I'd love to see us get some stops on defense. Again, even if we're not scoring on offense, hold the ball, take some air out of the balloon a little bit, and take some energy out of that crowd a little bit. And so, but I think the defense is what gives me hope that, we can come through and win this game. And we're going to have to see more. Like I said, we're going to have to see more from the offense. The offense has shown flashes. They can produce big plays. I'd love to think that we can run the ball a little more consistently than we have up to this point, but it's all going to start with the defense if Nebraska is going to get out of there with a win.
All right, let's look at matchup to watch. We talked about IU's offense against Nebraska's defense and strength. Is there a particular matchup, position group, player, even a coaching matchup that's going to be the pivotal matchup to watch this game?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see Nebraska's defensive line versus Indiana's offensive line. And I must admit, I haven't had a chance to watch a ton of IU, so I don't feel like I can speak expertly on the Indiana side of things. But I think if we, part of the reason, we got out to such a good start against Colorado is because we were disruptive to their passing game and to their offensive flow from the jump, from play one. I think Shedeur Sanders' first pass, Ty Robinson knocked it down, and we were off to the races, right? And so I really think that a key to success is going to be disrupting the passing game, disrupting the flow of the offense, and that starts with the big boys up front. So I can't speak expertly on Indiana's offensive line. Obviously, the offense as a whole has been very good and put up some really big numbers. And so I can't wait to see what the Husker defensive line can do in this matchup.
All right, we'll get two final questions in before we give the scientific predictions.
Sure.
Indiana wins this game if
Indiana wins this game if they're able to stay on schedule on offense. I think it's that simple. Nebraska, one bugaboo for this Nebraska defense, which hasn't had very many problems or issues, has been getting off the field on third down. And so I think if Indiana is able to convert and move the sticks and score in the red zone, I don't think Nebraska wins in a shootout, right? And I'm not even like if Indiana's able to keep up their offensive production like they have up to this point in the year, I think that's going to be a challenge for Nebraska.
And then conversely, you kind of hit on it earlier with playing complementary football. Nebraska wins this game if.
Yeah, Nebraska wins this game if they can make some stops on defense, get off the field, continue to generate turnovers. I mean, it all starts with defense. And then two, like I said before, are we able to put together a complete game? And again, that doesn't even mean scoring 50 points, but it means no special teams mistakes, no untimely penalties, no turnovers rearing their heads, getting off the field on third down on defense, and then doing just enough on offense. So for me, I think if any of those can, some of those maybe will fall short, we could still win, but the defense has to play their best game, I think.
All right, let's get into predictions. TJ, how do you see Saturday playing out?
We just did a mid-year review episode, and I picked this as a W for the Huskers. I've got to be honest with you. I'm very nervous about this game. I think, Kurt Signetti, I kind of poked fun at him in the offseason because he was talking big and brash coming into the Big Ten, and I kind of was like, yeah, well, he'll find out. He'll find out. And they've been really good. They've lived up to it, right? You guys have been fantastic. And so this will absolutely be the biggest test of the year for the Huskers. I think we can win this game. Inside, I'm not at all saying I'm sure of it or I think that's a guarantee, but I'll pick the Huskers for the W just to stay consistent with where I've been, and I'll go 27-23 Huskers.
All right, close game.
And 27 because we probably miss an extra point or something stupid like that, right? What about you? Are you saving your prediction for later?
I'm going to save my prediction for Thursday, but I do think it'll be a good game and a close game and an exciting game. But I do think IU will come out. I think home field's going to play a big part in it as well. And then, man, like you said, Kirk Signetti has all the confidence in the world. And yeah, people were shaking their heads, but you know what? You talk big at Indiana. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose to Ohio State and Michigan? Like, come on, that's happened for 100 years. So might as well talk a big game. And yeah, he's been fantastic and things like that. But TJ, thanks for joining us. Tell our fans and our listeners where they can find your stuff.
Sure, you bet. So yeah, it's a Common Fan podcast. We're on YouTube, and then anywhere you get your audio podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, any of those. You can find it all in one place at commonfan.co. That's our website, commonfan.co. And you can also just search Common Fan Podcast on YouTube as well. But any IU fans or Husker fans who are listening to this, but any IU fans who want to check out a little more on Nebraska football, hope you'll check us out. Yeah,
go check out commonfan.co. Thank you, TJ, for joining us. Enjoy another college football Saturday. Man, season's going by too fast.
It's going by too fast, but it's a lot of fun. It's the best time of year, and it'll be a great atmosphere on Saturday. So are you going to go to the game?
Yes, I do the stats for the radio broadcast, so I'll be there.
Oh, nice. Awesome. All right, well, send me some pics from the game.
Will do. Thanks for coming on, and everybody.
Thanks for having me, Sammy.
Yep. Thanks for listening. You can follow us at Hoosier_Huddle on Twitter and X, and you could read all our pregame stuff leading up to the noon kickoff against Nebraska at HoosierHuddle.com. Again, thank you to TJ Birkel, the Common Fan, for coming on and joining us as well.